However, let somebody know that we are live on the air. Also, they can tune in on Facebook. And right now, we are live on Facebook, 93.5 KPPM. Your community-minded station is the name of the page. And so you can go in and you can look at this video, and you can go back and look at the other one from last week. And also, I want to encourage you that this same show will, or the same interview will rebroadcast tonight at 5:15. All right, at 5:15. So I want to continue to encourage you to keep it locked and to stay tuned and to share this with someone. Let them know that there is a very important thing that is happening, a very important interview that is happening, where you have an opportunity to know who it is that you are that you can vote for. And let me just say this before we go into it, and this doesn't count for the candidate's time that he has, but I just want to say this. We have something very unique here in the city of Lake Charles, where we have this platform where candidates can come on and speak freely and speak about their plans of action and what they want to do. I hear so many times from other cities that they wish that they had a platform like this. So I want to encourage everybody to take part, to listen, to really, avail yourself to this process of getting to know a candidate and getting to understand their platform. All right. All right. Now, like I said, I am joined by none other than the man who has a plan to help rebuild, revive, and get this city to a place where it thrives again. I'm talking about none other than Mr. or Attorney Marshall Simien. I wasn't trying to rhyme all that, but it just happened naturally. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm fantastically well. And so we've got a great bit to talk about on today. And so I've already kind of dilly-dallied and delayed a little bit, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. On our last interview with you, we learned a couple of things about you, and I shared those things. One thing I found out about you is that you're a man of faith. I found out that you're a man of principle. You're a hardworking man, a family-oriented man, and you are persevered through a lot of different things that you had to go through. But one thing that I kind of left out of that is your education. And before I jump into that, I want to give you an opportunity just to say good morning to the people and just kind of, just say good morning and welcome everybody.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome. And thank y'all so much. I had a lot of feedback from our last interview last week. I was joined by my wife then, and she's by my side always, as always. So thank y'all so much. I'm pleased to be here. A lot of people have asked me and said, Marshall, we understand that you're running for mayor, but we want to know what your qualifications are too. So I told them we can talk about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so in an effort to talk about, your qualifications, which I think a lot of people, who may not know you, like myself, I moved to this city 7-8 years ago. And so I am less familiar with some of your work and the things that you've done. And so this has been a good time for me to get to know you. And as I said earlier, one of the things that I learned about you in our last interview is that you also are a man of education, and that you majored in government. And so let's talk a little bit about what does it mean to major in government, and how does that help prepare you to become the mayor of Lake Charles?
Well, I'll back you up just a little bit, because I tell people all the time I'm not on a campaign, I'm on an assignment, because you look back and you start seeing how all the blocks fell in place. Like I said before, I grew up in the northern part of Lake Charles, and that was I went to Molo Middle School and Washington High School. The beauty of that was that I was with real people who were dealing with real issues. I never grew up in a cubicle or any type of isolated place. So we talked about things, we saw things as children, as grown-ups, what our parents were dealing with, what work was dealing with, income, the value of money, financial literacy, all those different things. So when I went to college, I originally wanted to go into engineering, but then I realized, there's a human condition that really interested me. So I got into government, and we had some very important discussions in government I give you an example. We had a class one time where we had to write a paper on the separation of church and state. And I went ahead and most people wrote the paper saying, well, the religious leaders shouldn't influence what the government does, and the government shouldn't tell you how to worship. And that was fine. I took a different approach. I just went to the fundamental roots of what is politics. Politics is usually people trying to get to a certain place, and they have different philosophies about going there. And me, I just think I'm a visual person, so I think visually. So I looked at it as if you put people in a boat on each side of a boat and they're rowing, they're rowing, they're going forward where they need to go. Sometimes they're going to roll a little stronger to the left. Sometimes they're going to roll a little stronger to the right. But for the most part, they're getting where they need to go. That's the state. Now, religion is a whole different animal. Religion is about good versus evil. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Black and white. The other side is bad. There's nothing. That's the end of it. So, but if people let politics become their religion, then you have issues, because you put those people in the same boat. Now they're facing off against each other, and they're trying to row, and the boat just keeps going around in circles. And so I looked at government because I wanted to study formally on government, on not just government, but how does government work for people? How does it function to serve the people, and what is the true role of government? So that was the formal education that I did, and after that, I decided to go to a law school at LSU, which, they say that we're a nation of laws, not of men. And law school was pretty transformative because, I went to LSU after I went to McNeese. And there was a couple of things that happened that really transformed me. When I was in law school at the time, there was an ex-Klansman named David Duke who was running for governor of Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And it was a very trying time. At LSU, they have this area called Free Speech Alley. And people come out there and they just express their views no matter what they are. And it gets pretty strong out there.
Imagine.
I'm walking around, I'm listening to the discourse and the arguments and the discussions. And it made me realize that people had, you see people, sometimes they want to get to the same place, but it's just like in that boat, they just have different philosophies about getting there. And people's perspectives on life were defined by what their life experiences were. So you had people, they were talking sometimes about the same thing, sometimes totally different things, but their perspectives clouded what their judgment was. And it was at that point in law school that I realized that the biggest thing that we need to do as a society is build bridges to understanding each other. Because once we can understand each other, then we can become part of solutions instead of focusing so much on problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, one of the things that, as you talk about building bridges and connecting folks of different ideas, one of the issues that I've seen that we have in this community is the great divide, if you will, of the North Lake Charles versus the South Lake Charles. And I know that that's a thing that, we may end up tackling a little bit more as we go throughout this series. But I definitely think that that's one of those things that, as you prepare for the position of mayor of Lake Charles, and run this race, I think that that's one of those things that great divide is one of those separating factors that'll really shape and define this election. And so it's good rather that you have that experience already from LSU. Even dealing with David Duke of all people.
And trust me, that David Duke was just exploiting the different perspectives. It wasn't, people always looking for somebody to latch on to in terms of what they're trying to get done. And some people exploit that. And I saw, from what I could see, that was being exploited, because as I talked to other people, you realize that, we weren't that far apart, except that they just chose the wrong type of leadership. And we have those kind of problems all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then that leads me into the next thing. You started talking about your law school experiences, but then you also became a lawyer.
Yes.
And so how has your work in your law practice, or in your time of practicing law, how do you feel that's helped you to prepare for becoming the possible mayor of Lake Charles?
When I first got out I started working at a pretty large firm. We did a lot of work for huge corporations. One of the things that I wound up doing, I was working with most of the financial institutions. Back then, a lot of banks were failing, so we were working with the FDIC and a Resolution Trust Corporation to start winding those banks down. So we would bind up all these assets and sell them, and then whatever was left, the liabilities, go ahead and close the banks down. But the assets were being bought by these financial houses. I mean, some of those brilliant financial minds in the country, probably in the world, were coming through our door, and you get a chance to talk to them. And these people were building, they weren't just building like plants and manufacturing plants and other things. They were financing infrastructure. They were literally building cities, and they talked about that, and I learned a lot about that. So when I came here and started practicing, it's ironic, we just finished with celebrating the 4th of July, but there's one veteran in particular who had a very large influence on me. His name is Pastor Charles Robertson. He was a youth minister and then an associate minister at United Christian Fellowship Church. Mm-hmm. But Charles and I went to Washington together. We were a year apart. He was in a class ahead of me, but he was a visionary person. And he had gotten together with a lady named Kathy Vidrine, who owned Steamboat Bills. They had formed this company called Divine Connections. And what they did was he was dedicated to the veterans. He was a veteran, you know. And he went out and got authorization to build a VA clinic in Lake Charles. And that was not easy because you got to navigate a lot of bureaucracy to do that. Mm-hmm. But he went through that. We went through and got it done. You address every bump in the road. And then it came time to build a clinic, and we got together with this company out of Colorado that builds VA clinics around the country. And so through that whole process, we got together, we met with the city planning commission, everything else, because it was a time project. It had to be done on time. We got everything laid out, and it went through on time, and we got the VA clinic open. That's open on 3601 Gerstner Memorial Boulevard. My father-in-law just located to Lake Charles. He's a veteran, and he thinks it's one of the greatest facilities he's been in. So, in honor of Brother Charles for the 4th of July, he's one of those unsung heroes that you don't hear much about. But that VA clinic is a direct result of his vision and his energy. The other thing that I worked on was Brother Charles was also very instrumental in education. You know, so he used to have this place over on a Derrick Drive called the Bridge. It was really a place for children to go to, get them off the streets, give them something to do, release that energy. And eventually, when Hurricane Rita hit, the Cameron Parish School Board, Cameron Parish schools were destroyed, so they wound up leasing out the bridge to become a school, and eventually that became the first charter school. And then Charleston wound up selling that property and getting everything together with the charter schools, that eventually all of this wound up to becoming the Lake Charles College Prep. Lake Charles College Prep was the first high school built in this city in decades. And that was a direct result of Brother Charles Robertson and his work and his vision. So those kind of things prepared me. But that's just that side. Now, just in Southwest Louisiana, you know, I was a part of the team with Sasol. Sasol built a $9 billion facility out there in the Westlake area. Mm-hmm. You know, I was part of the team that got that done, and part of the way we had to deal with get into contracts with the city of Westlake and the port of Lake Charles to build major infrastructure to get that process built. So even in my law practice, I was dealing with things that were going to be transformational in our community by partnering what was happening with the private sector with the public sector to make sure that they both work together in conjunction with each other to meet the needs of our community.
Okay. And so, you know, one of the things that I kind of pick up and gather in listening to that is that, you know, you have had to deal with large companies and also large amounts of finances in order to get things done. And you've surrounded yourself, or you've been connected with people who have vision and you're able to help them see that vision all the way through. And so I like that about you.
Yeah, and the strongest word is collaboration, because I take credit for none of it, but when you're around some very talented people and those talents start to rise up, that's when you start seeing, you just find your place, and once those talents mesh perfectly together, you can see blessings come through it.
Okay. All right. And so, friends, I want to just take a moment to remind you and to encourage you. You're listening to 93.5 KPPM. And right now we have none other than the candidate who is running for the mayor of the great city of Lake Charles. I'm talking about none other than Mr. Marshall Simien. And so if you want to find out more about Mr. Marshall Simien, you can go to his website, Simien, F-O-R, mayor.com. That's Simien, S-I-M-I-E-N, F-O-R, mayor.com. Or if you're on social media, elect Marshall Simien. That is how you can connect with him on social media. Again, that is elect Marshall Simien, spelled S-I-M-I-E-N. And so I really want to encourage you all. We're not able to cover everything within these 15 minutes. And so you may want to know more. You may want to have conversations or reach out, however the case may be. Those are the ways that you can do it. And I encourage you all to use this election process to the best of your ability, meaning connect with the candidates, talk to them, get to know them. That's why they give you this information about who they are and how to contact them, okay? So as we continue on, we've established, first off, that your education has helped you to prepare for this seat. Also, we understand that your work, your livelihood has helped to prepare you. But I want to first, I guess, or next rather, begin to establish, if you have any, as folks would say, credible experience. Because sometimes what people look for most in a candidate is experience.
Sure.
And so, have you served in public office before? I've found out through the course of time that you have in my research, but maybe there's somebody who's new or to the city like myself who didn't know or doesn't know.
Right.
Have you served in public office before?
I have, and it wasn't that I was seeking to be elected to public office. I kind of got asked to serve on something, and it kind of stuck, you know.
Okay.
In my world, you know, some things we do is public service. I mean, whether it's doing pro bono projects for people or just going to Abraham's tent and serving. My version of public service is to go and serve people and address their needs. You know, I've been legally trained to do that, so I do that. But back in 2003, when I first, not too long after I moved back to Lake Charles, the mayor then, Randy Roach, there was a group that was proposing to build a hotel on the lakefront. So Mayor Roach he wanted the Blue Ribbon panel to check it out and make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, and I was selected for that. And there was a few of us on there, you know. One of them was there's a few of us that was on it. And we went out and said, you know what, these people made a proposal, but we'd like to check it against and see if this is the best proposal we have. So we went out and put together a request for proposals to see what would happen. And lo and behold, we got 9 responses on it. And most of these people out of Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, big hotel people, they wanted to build something on our lakefront. And so we went through it, and we went through the process and selected one. And then our work was done. Now, the hotel never came about. I don't know what happened with the administration, but it didn't. But after that process, eventually, later on that year, the Port of Lake Charles was being, for lack of a better word, mismanaged, and the governor came in and dissolved that entire port, kicked the whole port board off, and they wanted to start a new port board. So I got a call from our state representative for my district, L.C. Guillory, asking me, said, Marshall, would you consider putting your name in for the port board? And I said, well, L.C., I don't know anything about water. He said, no, but you understand business, and we need people to run this like a business. So I put my name in, and next thing you know, the next day, the American Press had 200 names in the paper. I remember my sister-in-law gave me a call and said, I didn't realize you were interested in the port. I said, nah, I think they just needed somebody in there to just have the names in. Well, lo and behold, when they picked the final 7, I was one of the 7. And it was 7 of a real quality people. I mean, if you look at who was on it, one of the people was a state senator now, Mark Abraham. You had Kay Barnett, who was doing a lot of things with Crystals to raise funds. You had Harry Hank, who was a plant manager. I mean, Judge Fred Godwin, some pretty strong people. And we got in, and our charge was to get this port back on track because they had bad accounting. So we had to get a clean accounting record. And I told them, I said, look, my practice is really starting. I said, I can give you about 2 years of this service because I have to balance that with my practice. But along the way, we did some things back then that, you look back at it now, you realize how transformational it was. For instance, we built LaBerge Casino. That's on port property. The area where LaBerge and Gold Nugget is, those used to be dredge spoil areas. The port is charged with dredging the ship channel, so they would deposit all the mud there. And we entered into agreements with Pinnacle Entertainment at the time to build a casino, and they put a golf course and everything else. So we took what was basically a mud pile and turned it into now what's currently $1 billion piece of gaming property and the most successful gaming operation in the state of Louisiana. But also we went to a port conference in San Diego, and everybody was talking about how you don't run ports, and they kept using the Port of Lake Charles. And finally, we just got tired of it and said, look, if you say the Port of Lake Charles again, you're going to have to pay us some royalties.
Yeah.
But when they asked the real formative questions, they asked, well, have you done performance, which is performance to see if your equipment can give a return on investment? We're the only ones raised our hand. They said, have you put together 5-year strategic plans that are flexible? We were the only ones raised our hand. So I knew at that point that we were on the course to fixing the port. But we had a meeting with these people from Sempra Energy, and they were trying to pitch a LNG plant. They had a mock-up of a LNG at their place, and we went to meet with them and say, well, why doesn't anybody want these? They said, well, because they think they're going to just blow up the whole, they're like atomic bombs. And we were looking at each other like, well, what the heck are you asking us this for? Till we say, wait a minute, let's look at do you have the pipeline maps for our area? They did. When they pulled on the pipeline maps of what's underneath the ground here, our pipeline system can distribute energy to anywhere in the country. We are actually a very strategically placed to handle that. So we signed an agreement with the Sempra people back then for LNG facility, not knowing that now Southwest Louisiana is probably the largest LNG destination in the world. If Cameron was its own country, it'd be the largest LNG exporter in the world.
Wow. And
that was just doing those things as a normal route. Well, after those 2 years, the port got a clean accounting. I went back to my practice, and currently this port is the 10th largest port in the United States. So that was a success story.
Wow. And so it sounds as though you've had some good experience in public service, and you've been able to do a lot through the port board, and I really want to.
Well, James, I forgot the most important part of the port. Was that, the longshoremen work at the port. I mean, people that I grew up with, that's where they earned their livings to support their families. And the reason why the port was mismanaged was because there was a mix between trying to protect the jobs versus operate the port. So when we brought in the LaBerges and the LNGs and all that, we set it up where the operations on the water side of the port was good enough to support where we could get the cost down to bring more ships in to support the longshoremen.
Oh.
Well, because their benefits that they get were directly tied to how many hours they worked. So we had to make sure that was done too.
Gotcha.
So we kind of put everybody in a win-win situation.
Yeah. And what I've gathered in that is that, again, although as you said, you gave them about 2 years or so on that board. Sure. I was born in this city, so I know a bit about it. And I remember kind of what the old port used to be. Yes. Used to look like. My dad worked, for PPG. My grandfather for years worked in this city. And so I remember kind of what it used to look like, and to now know where it sits, yes. Which is not where it used to be, to know how it looks now, and it actually looks better. It looks more like a port, and you see these big ships coming and going and all of that, and to understand that there was that you had rather a hand in helping to reshape our port helping to redirect our port, and even in as much as you were a part of the group or the board that helped to make sure that we had some sustainable finances here through bringing in entertainment and resources like the LaBerge and all of that. I remember, like I said, years ago when we had the Isle of Capri on this side of the bridge, and it was all right, but it all needed some help. And so I know you're a part of what helped to make this what it is. And so, folks, again, I want to remind you, you're listening to the voice of Mr. Marshall Simien. He is running for the position of mayor. And somebody said to me the other day, I said, why are you starting so early with talking about everything? And I know, like I said, we only have about 15 minutes and our time is winding down, and we've got a lot more questions to get to. But somebody asked me the other day, they said, why is he running or talking so early? Why is he doing this so early? And so as we prepare to, we'll kind of, I guess, bring some of this back next week.
Sure.
But as we prepare to go into closing up, maybe someone is asking, well, I know they're asking the question, why start so early? Just kind of give your thoughts on that.
Well, I tell you, our community has been through a lot. We had the hurricanes, we had the pandemic. We had a lot of things going on, and we've got a current mayor who decided, at first he said he was going to do 2 terms, then he said he changed his mind. I ran for mayor in 2017 with the thought that, Hurricane Rita back then was a once-in-a-lifetime event. That didn't happen, and I look very close at what's going on with this current administration. Not anything to say, raise flags about, but I think there's a direction and a vision that I think is a better course for us. So I wanted to start early because I think there's some very, very important conversations that we need to have about the leadership that we have and the direction we want to move in going forward. Because after everything calms down from the hurricane recovery monies and everything else, what we have is what we're going to have. And somebody said we having Lake Charles 2.0, and I can tell you Lake Charles 1.0 took a very severe lick at this last storm, and we can't go back to Lake Charles 2.0. We have to transform, especially if we have the ability to do so. And that's why I'm talking about my qualifications, the things that I've gone through. I can see a vision of where Lake Charles can be much better, much stronger, much more resilient, with everybody at the table participating, prospering. Because you're talking about North Lake Charles, South Lake Charles, black and white communities. When these hurricanes come at us, when these things come at us, they're not looking at that. They're looking at one Lake Charles. And if we don't attack this and deal with it as one Lake Charles, then the chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I tell you what, Miss Paula, I have enjoyed this time with your husband, and I know we've got more and greater things to come. But I tell you, what are your thoughts and what are your feelings on today?
What I'd like to say is there are so many layers to Marshall. I'm glad that we have this opportunity and an opportunity to kind of go slow with it, because we've been here now about 25 years professionally. He was born here, reared here, educated to McNeese, then left. So coming back in 1999, it's been about 25 years he's been here professionally, and he's done so much. It's going to take a little time to kind of like shed those layers. But I think through it all, you're going to find a man of integrity, transparency. He's always trying to do what's right. This is not about himself. And you're going to see that as time goes on. And the biggest thing that I tell him as we look back, God has truly groomed him for this position. So I hope that people tune in and listen, and those many who know Marshall know exactly what I'm saying. He's a true man of God. Thank you.
Amen. And so, one of the things Attorney Simien, that I want to kind of dive into next time is, again, I've done a little bit of research on you, and I found out that you served on the city council.
2 terms, 8 years, yep.
Yeah, a few years back. And so I want to talk about your time on city council, some of the things that you've been able to get done. I also want to take a moment to even talk about, the changes, and which falls under the category of what you've been able to get, but the changes that we can visibly see in the district that you represented for 8 years.
Sure.
And I know that there are some now that I know where you represented. And then also, we'll just kind of talk about, you mentioned Katrina and Rita, and I know that you were there. Like,
yes.
Not only were you here in the city living and having to recover, but you were also responsible for an area and helping them recover. And so I want to talk about that. And so, we've got a lot to do.
Oh, yeah. Man, look, I just gotten elected to the city council when Rita hit, so that was that was definitely a course correction.
Yeah. So, friends, as y'all can see and hear, we've got a lot that we're going to talk about, and I really want, again, I'm going to make this statement, and we give the opportunity to every candidate. And y'all know I say this every year when we go through this. I make an opportunity, or I reach out to every candidate, and not every candidate feels the need to come on and speak about their platform, about who they are. But pay attention to who is and who's willing to come and answer the hard questions, come and answer your questions. Because, see, some folks, I think, and I'm just going to say this, again, this is not a reflection of Mr. Marshall Simien or anything he asked me to say, but this is just me. I think some people take for granted that they're automatically going to get your vote. We've seen that even in national politics. Some folks just feel like, oh, they're going to vote for me anyway.
Right.
I look at what I did, what I put my name to, that and the other. No. Folks, get to know the candidate, all right? Get to know your candidate. Know who you are going to vote for. I appreciate Mr. Attorney Simien for coming in so soon and so early, because, man, I'm telling you, it makes a difference when you get to know who it is that you're voting for. So let me just say thank you. I appreciate you putting yourself through this. Again, even being here puts you in a spotlight. It opens up for people to give you criticism, to give their thoughts, their ideas. So thank you for this. I really do appreciate it. And so that's what I got for today. But I'm going to let you close us out because I could just go on a little bit about this political stuff.
Yeah. Well, and James, thank you for having me. I didn't just arrive here. I'm prepared to talk to anybody about anything. There's nothing that has not been thought through and considered, because at this point in my life, I'm in a good place. My daughter's graduating from high school. We're empty nesters. But there's a certain part of me that sees what's happening in the community, and it bothers me. It vexes me. And there's no way in the world I could sit there and be comfortable with myself at night if I didn't talk about it or try to do something about it. As my wife told me a long time ago, she said, you can't complain about something if you're not willing to do something about it. So I put myself out there, and that has had its ups and downs, because I'm a big boy, I can take it, but your family, your friends, people that you acquaint with that care about you, they go through the campaigns with you. But like I said, this is an assignment, so I just put everything at the foot of the cross. The cross can hold a lot, man. It not just held the man, it held the man that held all our sins. So every burden that's out there, there's no burden that he didn't handle. So anything that I feel that's coming at me, I put it at the foot of the cross. But at the end of the day, I'm accountable because I am my brother's keeper. So that's why I do what I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Friends, that was the voice of Mr. Marshall Simien. And one last time, I know I said it, but if you don't mind, if you could say just how people could connect with you, how they can, find out more about the campaign, any of those things, what are those links and websites and numbers?
Well, the website is www.simien, Simien, for mayor.com. That'll take you direct to the website, and you'll see the video, you'll see the platform. I'm very transparent about where I am. And then on Facebook page, I have my own personal Facebook, which I put things in. If you want to see who I am, my life, and everything else, that's there. It's not a total open book, but it is for real who I am. And then I have a campaign page, Elect Marshall Simien. So please go in and feel free to direct message me with any questions you have, or if you have any groups that you want me to come and talk to. Like I said, there's nothing that's off limits right now.
There you have it. There you have it, friends. And you know, I'm on the Simien for Mayor campaign page right now. And friends, I want to encourage you. They have, you know, different tabs on there that you can click on where you can find out more about them. There is the Meet Marshall page or tab, and you can find out a bit about him through that. And then, like I said, if you want to get involved, there is a place there where you can do so. You can, you know, submit your messages. You can do whatever it is you need to do right there. And then there's even little tabs where you can click for the Facebook, for the LinkedIn, and the Instagram and YouTube. So I want to encourage you all, connect with this candidate, get to know this candidate. And then, like I said, also, I'm going to say this, and this is, again, I'm not asked to say this. I'm not being paid to say this. I believe in this process. And so there is even a opportunity if you want to donate to this campaign. It takes finances to do this. And yes, he possibly could. I don't know his background or his financial. I don't know. I'm not in his pockets. I'm just saying he possibly could, you know, fund his own campaign. However, it helps to have community support. All right. It helps to have folks who are behind you. And so I'll tell you that with any candidate, not just this one, but donate to the campaign, support the candidate that you feel like, you know, should get your vote. I think too often, and y'all have heard Reverend Al Sharpton say it, and I say it myself, but I think too often we think that just giving a vote is good enough, but sometimes some folks need our support financially. They need our support publicly, and they need us to really do our part to be a part of this process.
And I would also appreciate the prayers too, because, you know, like I said, it's an assignment, and prayer is power.
There you have it. There you have it. So, friends, this has been a very special interview with Mr. Marshall, attorney. I got to make sure I call him by his proper title, attorney, Esquire Marshall.
I'm actually Paula's husband. That's it.
There you go. So it's attorney Marshall Simien and his wife, Miss Paula Simien. Thank y'all again for being in on today. And like I said, I really appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
All right. Friends, you are tuned in to 93.5 KPPM. We are your community-minded station. And again, in an effort to be about our mission of being community-minded, we bring you these segments and we make it available so that if you miss it, you can catch it later. So this will be rebroadcast tonight at 5:15. Also, in addition to that, it will always be available on our Facebook page. And tomorrow it will be available on our YouTube page. It takes about 24 hours for me to get it up on the YouTube page. All right. So I want to encourage you all, make sure that you check it out, share it with a friend, you know, all of that stuff. And again, I know I've been saying it for the past couple of weeks, but thank you all for your love and support. Thank you all for voting for us and making us your number one choice for entertainment, for gospel music, for, you know, conversations, all of that. I greatly appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get back into the music. And I want to play this song. This is one of those ones I really enjoy this song, and I've been singing it a lot lately. But let me just say, it's not one for everybody. And you say, well, why is that? Because in order to sing this song, you got to be willing to go through some things. I'm talking about Refiner by none other than CC Winans. Keep it locked. You're tuned in to I Am Encourage Radio on 93.5 KPPM.